and you
Yeah.
can't tell me this stuff isn't real unless you can explain these photos, or for that matter, the McMinnville photos by Paul Trent,
Gotcha. Yep.
which is another fantastic case, because this is another case where they didn't seek publicity and they didn't want it known. And they see this object hovering behind their house and pull out a camera and take a number of pictures. I think it was two or three, or two, and you can see clearly that this is an object. It's a somewhat overcast day, so there's sort of a light scattering effect that you can tell how distant an object is, because it becomes sort of less clear, I guess you might put it, or less bright. But you can clearly tell that this is an object that's not too far from the camera. It's very low in the sky. It's hovering right over these telephone wires, between these telephone wires, or that's where the picture is kind of being taken. Depending on which photograph you're looking at, some debunkers have said, oh, well, it's just a model dangling from these telephone wires, and that's why these photos are cropped to take the telephone wires out. But if you look at the full photo, no, it's not dangling, and there's been studies on the negatives where they light blast them to look for little strings or something hanging,
That's right.
which have been found in some cases, but not in the McMinnville cases. And the investigator who got a hold of these photographs actually found out about them, and they had a hard time finding the negatives. They're like, oh, they're around here somewhere. And they finally pulled out the photos out of some box or in their desk drawer somewhere, and they're like, oh, here they are. So it clearly wasn't like, let's pull a hoax,
Right.
Great photographs. They're very close. And another one where it's like tilting towards the camera and you can see it. And it's like, wow, what is inside this thing? Because they didn't land, they didn't see ETs, they didn't get any messages. So they're not like fabricating a big old story around these photos. It was just a brief sighting, daylight. This object is not a typical saucer. It's got this little sort of pointy little antenna type thing on top.
Right.
Which is very...
fascinating.
Right? It's really interesting because all these different the Heflin photographs look kind of like a top hat, sort of.
Right, indeed.
But still sort of that same circular round shape, which apparently is effective for electromagnetic engines.
Okay.
Because the round shape is what we see a lot. But there are triangular shapes, they're spherical. The McMinnville are this typical sort of saucer shape with inverted sides and real close up, and it was just hovering there, silent, by the way, as was the Heflin object.
Right. And I think it was it Paul and Evelyn Trent, I believe. There was a brief documentary or something done on him, but in my opinion, not expansive enough to where it really did due diligence to this case, because I think Bruce Maccabee, I think he was optic physicist I think he was for the military, not military. I forgot what his background was, but I know he actually did extensive research on the photographs. But most that it was another one of those cases where it wasn't determined that. There again, what I have up now, where you see it in the papers, it said at long last authentic photographs of a flying saucer, but it's with a question mark. But there again, these are when you look at the time period in the 50s or whatever that earlier period is, it's one of those things where if there was any kind of evidence of these being in question of it being a fake, it shouldn't be that difficult for them to determine that was the case. But there again, time and time again, there's been many conclusions that these were bona fide, UFOs. And there again, from their pedigree of who they are, it's like when you hear that kind of testimony again from certain people, there was really no justification as to why they would even want to fake something like this. These are routine people in their regular lives, just minding their business, and they happen to see something out of the ordinary. Took a picture of it, and there you have it. So I find it interesting how just certain, accounts that are not taken seriously. It's like, what's the point of, there again, why do we have a justice system if you can't, state a particular claim and say, hey, this happened to me. This is what I'm sharing. and many have felt, betrayed by what they've received, negative and different type of ridicule as to why certain people just don't say anything because I'm sure you're well aware of in some of the cases that you have, it's too difficult to share an experience and it not be taken seriously.
Yeah, I feel really bad for UFO witnesses, especially earlier on. These days, I think accounts are being taken a lot more seriously. There's all these programs on television. It's the most popular subject, well, second on the internet. We all know what the first one is, and we'll go into that. But yeah, right. UFOs are very popular on the internet because, the mainstream news doesn't cover them properly. There is a media blackout on this subject. Despite that, certain events are so widely viewed or undeniable that they do make it through the news. The Paul Trent photographs have survived decades. No one's been able to debunk them, or the Heflin photographs. There's a few other photographs from that era, and those are probably the leading ones, or among them certainly. And no one's ever been able to explain them. You still see them, on the covers of UFO books.
Indeed. Yeah. I think actually,
recent. Yeah.
I have a clipping from Popular Mechanics, and I think that was back in maybe the late 90s or early 2000s, where they did the 10, I guess it was the 10 photographs that were kind of outstanding out of all of the UFO claims. And right on the front cover, I wish I had it with me right now, it was the Oregon McMinnville, the trick photos. That was like the actual number one that they had on the front cover of their magazine. That says a lot of things.
Yeah, and if you look at these days on the internet, on YouTube and all, there are some great photographs. A lot of people are photographing this stuff, and these are genuine photographs, which are completely inundated by false photographs, hoaxed photographs, and videos for that matter, because people are creating some great videos, and sometimes you can instantly tell. You look at this like, wow, that's real, because you can tell. Others are so obviously fake, but others are really well done, and you're like, I can't tell.
Yeah.
So we're at an era now where if the Phoenix lights were to happen again, that was 1996, just before cell phones really were kicking into gear or high gear, and if that were to happen now, if something were to hover over, Washington D.C. or New York City or L.A. or Chicago or something, all bets are off. I mean, we're there. We are just this close to it. Because every 5 years or so, there's a huge major wave. Whether it's, let's see, there was the Hudson Valley wave, Gulf Breeze wave, there was Topanga Canyon wave, a huge wave in Wytheville, Virginia. There was a wave in Alabama, I remember. There was a giant wave in France, one in Belgium. Mexico City. These are worldwide. There was a recent one in Stevensville, Texas. That was probably one of our most recent, really big events that couldn't be covered up. We're overdue, and I think we're going to get one, and it's going to be a watershed event.